Make sure I get this muted so I don't get like echoing crazy here.
No.
So it looks like we are live. It says we are streaming now, folks. Make sure I get this muted so I don't. Oh, there we go. I knew that was going to happen. All right. So today we have our special guest, Jonaed Iqbal. Did I say that correct?
Jonaed.
Jonaed? Why do I always mess up everyone's name? Jonaed.
No, you know what? People mess up. My name is a very common name to mess up, so it's not a big deal. It's rare for someone to get it right on the first try.
You know what? They call me Vicky, Vanessa, Valerie, but never Veronica. So I
You know
understand
what?
how that feels.
There was a person that I knew named Veronica that was a common thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today is no degree, no problem, and don't let that stop you. One of the great things that I love to do is find random people, sometimes on LinkedIn or just me surfing, that I see that are disrupting work today. And I came across you on LinkedIn, saw the things that you're doing, and of course, sorry, but it attracted me, your business, nodegree.com, that I was like, ooh, what's he doing? And I found it quite interesting. But I'm going to say, though, you do a lot of good things. And last week, I do have to share that you actually had a live stream to help donations for someone to go to the Olympics
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah.
And so you're always doing great things that are out there, in addition to challenging the status quo. And so Ivan, as our guest to be that is physically with us in our meetup today, and those others that might be watching us. Oh, it looks like Roxana is on her way
Yes.
too. So let me
Nice.
get her in. Oh, it's becoming a party. What are
Yeah.
we gonna do with ourselves?
We'll figure it out.
All right. So let's see. Here's Roxana. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And let's talk about what you're doing with the concept of not having any degrees. Tell us
So,
about that.
I mean, in simple terms, I just want to change how the stigma attached to people without college degrees. Oftentimes, they're seen as lazy, not as hardworking, less intelligent, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The thing is, it's like a lot of people don't have college degrees and they come in a lot of shapes and sizes. It's like if you ask your doctor to diagnose your car, they'd probably be pretty stupid too, right? They'd probably tell you something that doesn't make any sense. They'd probably tell you to fill up your headlights with blinker fluid or something like that. And, just like if you take someone outside of their area of expertise, they're just not as smart, right? If you take a fish out of water, right, or you ask a bird to swim. So that's sort of my philosophy. And the main issue, mainly in the U.S., is that college is astronomical, right? I was reading that
So expensive now.
I was reading like a funny comment online where it was like universities basically um are I forgot they're theaters that stage classes for tax purposes or something. No, they're entertainment companies that stage class that have classes for tax purposes. And it's just sort of crazy how much, and the money is not like going to the professors or anything, right? It's not necessarily it's going into like the buildings, the infrastructure, these fancy football teams and all that. And colleges are in the business of education. So my thing is, a lot of people go to college, they'll go a year or two and they'll drop out because they don't know what they want to do. And I'm not anti-college. So for example, if there's someone who they're doing well in high school, they know what they want to do, go ahead, go to college. I'm more for, hey, you're not sure what you want to do, or there's something else you want to do, and there's a way to do it without college. I encourage you to explore that option.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people that actually go to college. Even my friends of when I graduated, they didn't end up having that career. I think 2 years in, they actually switched their careers. And
Yeah,
so my niece just graduated. She's not even using that degree, but she finished it because she wanted to finish what she started.
yeah,
But that degree is just now sitting on the shelf. And now she owes school loans.
yeah. 41% of people work a job, like college graduates work a job that don't even require a degree. So imagine if I told you you're going to invest tens of thousands of dollars into a business and there's a 41% chance that you probably didn't need to invest that money. They can tell you it's a terrible investment, but then you have, parents from the moment their kids are born, they're saving up for college. They save up 18, whatever, 10 to 18 years. If you told a business, I'm saving up 18 years for your product, you think they're going to be like, oh, that's awesome. They're going to be like, you know what? Maybe I should charge even more. You have to, like, at some point, you have to tell them, hey, this is too expensive. This is not worth it.
Yeah, Ivan said his daughter's never finished college and is chronically underemployed, but she has great work ethic and is ambitious, and he
Yeah.
would love to learn how to help her.
So
Yep.
first, the thing is, it's what a lot of people without degrees, they tend to sort of be aimless in terms of because they're not sure what they want to do. There's a lot of careers out there. So first, what always I recommend is like figure out what you want to do. So one thing I suggest, like I'm a certified career coach. There's a Gallup test, Gallup Strengths Finder. It's like $20. I'd recommend you take that because then what happens to a lot of people who are like chronically underemployed, that I'm not, maybe it's not her case, but they tend to get jobs that they're not really excited about or it's not really utilizing their strengths. So that therefore they're either not going to look for jobs or more hours, or they're not going to look for something. They're just kind of doing it just to sort of, hey, I need to have a job. So for example, like in the strengths finders, like one of the things is mine is like I like being strategic, right? I like thinking about the future, and I really believe in myself, and I like building people up. So for someone like me, it's like I need to have a job where I'm focused on strategy and I'm building people. And the thing is, you can never escape your strengths. So if you're a people person and I put you in the back office, you're going to find a way to talk to people, whether it's at your job or outside your job. If you're someone who likes, like you're gonna see sales people, right? They have a certain type of personality, certain type of right. So you may want that hey, I like sales, I like convincing others, I like persuading others. And if you have a job where you can't persuade others, you're gonna find other way. You're gonna go online, make comments and stuff. So first I would kind of do that and then figure out, okay, once you get the results of those tests, what makes sense for your daughter, what makes sense for that. So that's what I find for a lot of chronically underemployed people. It's just they need the right opportunity. They need like the right thing, and it's not easy to get that. But once they get that, it's like a light bulb. It's a switch, and I'm pretty sure we all experience it too, right? That there's environments where we don't succeed in, or roles we don't succeed in. And it's not because we're lazy. It's just that they're not right for us. Like if you gave me a job where I'm not a morning person, I have like a shifted circadian rhythm. You give me a job that came at 8 a.m. every day, 9 a.m. every day. Yeah, I could do it for like a week or two, but what's gonna happen is I'm gonna start showing up late, and I'm gonna do that. And it's not because I'm lazy, right? If you look at my background, right, I got a degree from an Ivy League. I've done all that. It's not a laziness issue. It's just how my body's wired. So a lot of times it's figuring out what you're good at, what your strengths are, what your passions are, and then figuring out, hey, how can I incorporate this into my job search?
Now you have the nodegrees.com
Yeah.
website. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I launched No Degree because a lot of people without degrees, they just don't know the careers that are out there. Like people don't grow up and say, "Hey, I want to become a claims adjuster," or "Hey, I want to become an elevator mechanic." It's just most people have their generic careers: lawyer, doctor, engineer, firefighter, cop, and a few other things that they know of. But think about it: most people when they go to college, they're like, "Hey, I want to major in business." It's like business is so big. Like small business is different from medium-sized business, is different from large business, is different from like service-based businesses, it's different from international business. Like it's such a big field. So it's overwhelming, right? And I realized there wasn't a centralized resource for people without degrees that they could figure out, okay, where are all these jobs? Like, even if you want to be a welder, there's like underwater welders, there's like commercial welders, there's like residential welders, there's welders that work on specific types of equipment. So, my goal is to te- tell people, oh, what's a welder? What do they do? How much do they get paid? What do you need trade school? Do you need certifications? How do you go about doing it? And I lead them to resources. So, hey, you're really interested in being a welder? Go check out this podcast episode, or go check out this book. So that's sort of why I did the nodegree.com, and just career advice like, hey, how to sort of write a resume, how to sort of interview. And that's why I launched a podcast, the No Degree podcast, where I interview people without degrees and they share their stories like, hey, I was this at 18 years old. I worked as an office assistant. I got this certification and I then used this to move up. And Roxana makes a great thing. Employers should hire more based on certifications that they see on a resume. That I think that's a lot more important because hey, a certification is less, barrier to entry, but it still shows commitment, right? That hey, if you spend 3 months, you get this certification because not every what a lot of people just don't realize that getting a college degree is a luxury. That there are people who literally just cannot because they have a family, their family, like their parents pass away and they don't have the money. There's so many reasons why someone doesn't have a degree, but they're still very good and they're still very smart and they still have the willingness to learn.
Hey, we all know, especially in the tech industry, that some of the things that they're teaching you in college are outdated
Yeah, I
already.
mean,
So by the
there
time the kids get out of school, they are not up to date of what's actually happening out there in the market.
yeah, I mean, look, schools are good for teaching principles. There's things like I remember one time when I was working, someone mentioned, "Hey, we got make this a college class," and then the thing with academics, they're like, "Well, that can't be a class because in order to be a class, it needs to be like X, Y, Z, and this and that, and that's too new to be a class. It's not studied well enough." And it's like, look, the way the market works is like, if it works, it works. They don't care whether it's a college class or not. It's gonna work. That they're not gonna wait for colleges to teach classes on AI. People are gonna undertake their own projects and they're gonna do that. So right, that's something you're going to see that it's going to be outdated for certain things. Like think about it, are you going to learn social media marketing for a college? Like they're probably still teaching about MySpace,
Yeah,
you know.
it's not real time, and it's almost like the combining field experience with the principles and
Yeah,
doing away with some of those structures. Right, we're
yeah,
going to remote working these days, and
yeah,
minimizing structures. Some companies are even still rethinking about that. I mean, it's trillions of commercial real estate is now on the table of loss. Right,
yeah,
what makes it any different in the education system to start thinking about that dynamic, right?
yeah. The thing is, it's hard for bureaucracy is why education is so expensive, and bureaucracy is why there's a lack of change or progress.
Yeah.
That you know they just that red tape just causes issues, and that if you want, I talk to a lot of professors, I talk to a lot of people who teach at university, and they'll say this thing is outdated, right? They'll say it, they'll be like, hey, this is too darn expensive, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because it threatens my job. So think about it, most of the professors are even against the system that they teach in, so that's a big issue.
Yeah. Now I'm checking out your website right now. You have about, it says 13,460 live jobs right now.
Yeah,
Um, Based on what you've learned so far, what type of jobs tend to be where you help get people aligned with? What have you learned from so far since you've started nodegree.com? What kind
i
of
mean
insights?
I mean, in the past year, I've really gotten into resumes, and I've done over like 100. And but when I do a resume, I spend about 3 to 8 hours with someone because a lot of people don't realize that you need to spend time just figuring out yourself, what you're good at, what you bring to the table. Because most people only spend, hey, they'll copy and paste things out. But the thing is, you have to show what you bring to the table and what you're good at. And I've realized that a lot of people just don't realize how many of their skills are transferable. Most people's careers are not linear. It's not like, hey, you're gonna do this at 24, you're gonna do this at 26, you're gonna do this at 28, and you're gonna go right. Most people have careers where they switch 2 years. Hey, they learn something, or a new opportunity comes this way that they take. And even my career is not linear, right? I'm doing things today that I never thought I would do, and I'm gonna do things next year that I probably have no idea about right now. And that's just how life is. That's just how careers are. There's so many reasons why you want to switch, why things happen, why maybe you have to move. You get married and you have to move because your significant other gets a job. That's a reason you could switch. So careers are just non-linear. They just go all over the place, and there's so many good resources out there. And I think a lot of people just undersell themselves.
Are there any particular career fields that are becoming more predominant that you're seeing today?
Tech, obviously tech, right? Tech, their companies are growing. If you realize like the stock market has gone down, but what's been keeping it decent is most of the tech companies, right? The tech companies have like ballooned up in value. So you're going to see a lot more careers. You're seeing a lot more careers in AI, automation, technology, because you look at all the jobs that are lost. How are they being lost? It's like, hey, they're being automated away. But even when you automate jobs, you need to have someone maintaining that automation. It's not just like, hey, a job's automated, that's it. There's someone else who has to maintain that automation.
What about shipping and logistics, especially with during the pandemic of all the,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going, because think about 10, 15 years ago, ordering online is like you had to have a friend who had like, I remember ordering online in high school. It's like I had to get my uncle's PayPal account and stuff, right? People didn't trust giving your credit card information online and just the way things worked. And like shipping was like, 2 to 3 weeks at least. Now it's like you get things and Amazon, some things you order in the morning and they come at
that
night.
day.
So you've seen like the UPS, FedEx grow, even international shipping. So shipping logistics is going to grow. I think. Look, some jobs are going to go away, but I think others are going to grow, and that's just nature. That now you have like drones and stuff, so that area is growing. So you're going to just see a lot of growth in just different. It's change, right? At one point they got rid of the typewriters, right? They got rid there was a job called computer where you would be the one doing the calculations in, like, I guess the 50s to 80s. Like, think about it. Now Excel does that. But it's not like, they just switched, right? They say automation. Well, my view on automation is that it'll change things. Like, for example, Excel, right? What it did for like accountants, it just allowed them to do more. Because if you look at most companies, there's always things they have to do that they never get around to. And all automation does is shift things that they don't want to do anymore and focus on those things that they actually do want to do.
Now, how many employers has in the last year, since with the no degree, uh, has started participating? Do you see it increasing more and
Yeah,
more?
I mean, you see it increasing because at the end of the day, most people, they're like, yeah, I just need someone who can do XYZ, and more people are being open, especially small to medium sized businesses. It's really the big companies who are like, oh no, HR says this and we can't do anything. And even then, a lot of people, they don't, it's HR holding them back, right? HR has such a bad rep because they're just so slow when it comes to things. Like, I've seen people who are like, "Hey, you hit all the boxes. Oh, but we can't hire you. HR says you need a college degree. What? You don't have a college degree? We can't hire." Imagine you tell someone, "Hey, everything's good." Oh, what? You don't have a purple shirt? Like, we can't hire. It's just like, it's such a weird, such a requirement. Like, you hire someone to be able to do a job, and if they've demonstrated that they can do a job, that's what matters, right? That's why I'm a big fan of certifications, because if, let's say, someone doesn't have a certification, you could say, okay, you know what, your part of your condition is you have to get the certification in 3 months, right? But imagine you had such a great employees, but you're like, nope, you can't manage people until you get a college degree. It's like, what do you learn about managing in college degrees, right? I live a few houses away from a college house. Those kids are partying every weekend, right? Versus the person who's undertaking projects and developing their skill sets is going to get passed down because they don't have like the stamp of recognition that can't ever accurately reflect you anyway.
Interesting how you say the stamp of recognition, where we know, especially here in the United States, we're highly driven by status.
Yeah, no, unfortunately there's a big cultural thing in that. I had a former friend. She was like, no, my daughters had to go to a certain college, and oh my god, it's like, just view them as like decorations, and it's like you sort of dehumanize the people too, that you're just reduced to this one thing. When, look at all the people who find their own companies, like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, some of the greatest minds, and they don't have college degrees, right? They're obviously brilliant and they could have done college, but at the time they just didn't for whatever reason. And that, imagine, now think about it. I'm pretty sure the future CEOs of Apple, they're not going to hire them unless they have MBAs, which is ridiculous because the person who made Apple what it is today was a person without a degree, right?
Most of them dropped out.
Yeah, they drop out because I come across a lot of founders who are like, look, it's a waste of my time. Like, I have things to do right now, and I got to
What's
things are
holding them
changing.
back is being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and then other people, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I know people who are making healthy multi six figure revenues, right? And they didn't go to college, but they put in the work, and they put in the time, and they grew.
Now, from when I was watching, your show with the donations. I forgot his name.
Yeah,
That was
Olajide
yeah,
Omateo.
yeah. I was gonna really mess that one up.
Yeah,
And the one thing that I loved when he talked about his parents and believing in, and they said, if you're most passionate about, he was really honing in on that
yeah,
and allowing him to take a year away and really focus on this, right? To
yeah.
go to the Olympics. Um, what would you probably say with a lot of parents today, especially now during the pandemic? There's probably a lot of people really stressed out about the future, the finances, and there's always this pressure and expectation to send your kid to college, right? Like in Florida here, we have that savings program that, like, the day they're born, you can put away money for them to go to college, and that's a lot of pressure on a parent.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
have kids, but I can just imagine. Roxana, Ivan, two of you have kids. That what are the different paths and options out there that maybe can ease some of that stress and burden that parents feel today?
So the thing is, a lot of parents, because I completely understand, right? From my parents' perspective, they grew up in a third world country in Bangladesh, and you had to have gotten a college degree, right? In those countries, it's just the cultural norms are even harder. Like now, it's not even college; it's you have to go to college and you have to get these grades, or else you're like a stain on society. Now, places like the U.S. and Canada, they're more forgiving, and Europe, and the main thing that I encourage parents is like teach your kids how to learn, teach your kids to be curious, teach your kids to be inquisitive, and you'll be surprised at what they figure out. Apply, knowing how to apply themselves, because you have like those are skills that are they have to have, right? That you don't stop learning even if you go to college. You don't stop learning at 22. Imagine, like, it's not like you go to college and all of a sudden you're a senior vice president of a company, right? Those are things, there's some things you're just going to have to learn through life. And I think just teaching your kids and understanding what their strengths are, and helping them focus on their strengths. And because the thing is, you don't have to save any money for your kids. If you give them the tools, if you build their characters, you build their skills, they don't need any money, right? Because you could give your kids all the money in the world, and I've seen it all the time. Look at these trust fund babies. They don't do anything, right? They just have these things and they go through life and they don't do it because why? They didn't. Versus you could give a kid $0, but you equip them with the tools of how to save their money, how to invest, how to do all these things. That's much more. That's worth more than any amount you could save.
Yeah, our last guest was Luke Holman, where he has developed a tool or an app, I should say,
Yeah,
uh, to help with financial literacy, where he's trying to help change that paradigm where people can have choices, right?
yeah.
Choices become limited when you don't have an understanding of financial intelligence.
Yeah. And emotional intelligence, because
Yeah.
this is really underrated, right? Because IQ is very important, right?
Yep.
IQ historically was sort of very SAT, right? All these things measure IQ. But the thing is, I've met people with high IQ, but that have low emotional intelligence, right? They don't know how to treat people. They don't know how to navigate situations, right? You see a common thing among engineers, right? That they don't know how to present themselves. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to like sort of get a girlfriend and stuff. And that, like, think about it. You could be smart. I see a lot of people, they're very smart, they're very, but then they don't have the respect, right? They don't know how to just handle themselves. And these are things that it's like, you can sort of be quote unquote dumb, but if you know how to handle yourself, you know how to handle situations, you know how to problem solve, you'll still get very far in life. Versus
Yeah.
all these other things. So i I think you really need to look at emotional intelligence, and that's
Oh,
something that really needs to be
definitely.
emphasized.
uh, SEL is what some of them call it, social emotional learning.
Yeah,
I'm really happy to see that starting to be put in schools, even at grade school level, right? Elementary,
yeah,
and that is huge. I can just imagine if I had that, and probably avoided some of the different turns that I've taken. And yes, I'm very fortunate where I how I ended up, but imagine where I could have been, or maybe it been the road might have been a little bit easier by, I think, a lot of that social emotional intelligence, because those decisions are made by emotions.
yeah. I mean, think about it. It's like some decisions you have to make in an instant, right? Like, hey, how do I in this like most people can tell can say the perfect thing in the shower 2 days later, right? But then you have a conversation with your boss. How do you negotiate salary? And your boss says something, and how do you react? Or how do you stand up for yourself? How do you tell this
Mhm.
person, hey, you're not doing the you need to improve your work in a nice way without making them, saying it so direct that they hate you. These are all things that are so important that are necessary in the workplace, because those tough situations, like I deal with them, and it doesn't get any easier where someone doesn't perform up to expectations, or even when someone does perform above expectations. How do you make sure that they know that they're recognized, that they, like, you look at one of the most important number one reasons why people leave jobs is they're not appreciated. So think about it. So someone gets an MBA, they do all this thing, they pay like 150,000 for a degree, and they don't know their employee leaves because of lack of appreciation. Like, you wasted your money. You wasted your
That
money.
is
That
the main thing that Roxanne and I, on our TV show is a TV show, live
yeah,
show, streaming. I don't even know why I call it a TV. It's a TV now, live streaming.
yeah,
Um, that it's all about blurring the lines between personal and work,
yeah,
because exactly to what you're saying is, and I've kind of termed it as split identity,
yeah,
where you should be able to be yourself. And when you go into some of these companies where you have to act a certain way, and how we're talking right now,
yeah,
it needs to be more polished, or a certain look, and how you speak. No
yeah.
wonder people shut down.
No, I mean, it's exhausting, all these per my last email, and you see these passive aggressive emails that you always get at work, where it's like, people just need to be open. And it's just so weird. I remember when I worked, everything would be done over email. Sometimes it's like this long chain of emails, you call them and it's like, yeah, hey, cool, okay. Versus on, like,
Oh, I've seen people get in debates over
yeah,
email, and I'm like, really? Can't you guys
yeah,
like just
just
talk?
and it's just crazy how these things happen. um and yeah, I mean, it's a big issue in corporate, and I think it's just, you people need to be, it's not like you have to be the same person you're at home, right? But people should be allowed to, just show more of their personality. That it's just, think about it, it's like in the corporate world, it's like, you don't, people's hair has to be a certain way, your look has to be a certain way, all this stuff. I remember one, and well, this was not corporate, it was small business. They were like, um they wouldn't hire someone with tattoos, because what
Mm.
would their kids think? Like, it's like, who cares? Teach your kids that it's okay. Some people have tattoos. Like, that's the lesson. It's
Yeah,
just,
I remember people would get tattoos so their
yeah,
shirts
yeah,
to the point where it covers it up.
yeah, yeah. So, it's just one of those things that, at the end of the day, look, and I think the other thing is customers need to be more open too, because a lot of times companies want to be open. Oh, but the client can't see that. Oh, the customer can't see that. And it's like, we as society need to be acceptable. Who cares if the person who I call, who I talk to, me, has a tattoo? Who cares if they, have their hair a certain way? Like, are they impacting work, or is it preventing? Like, it's one thing if it's safety, right? Like, if you have, the hair can get caught up in a machine or something like that, or it's food, you have hair nets. But if it doesn't impact the work, it doesn't impact the environment, let people be more of themselves, and you'll see they'll produce more, they'll be more productive.
Now, you said that you've been helping a lot with people, really helping them craft their resume,
Yeah.
and so forth. What 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 have you learned about some of the conversations with the folks that might be holding them back?
um
As you're helping them really figure out what their next path is, right?
Lack of research. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many people, like, don't do like a simple Google search of like, what is a good resume. Because the thing is, look, resumes suck, the process sucks, I know it.
No, I was just complaining about
Yeah,
it.
no, no, and I know it. And but I'll tell you, like, and I wish there was something else, but unfortunately, a lot of companies use it. So you have to do what you have to do. Now, what a lot of people don't do is they don't, like, they just either go into too little detail or too much. Like, if, let's say, you say, hey, I greet customers, just put an estimate. How many you greet? 50 plus customers a day. You handle the cash. How much cash do you handle per day? Give some things like, hey, what do you do? Because what employers want to see is like, hey, how is this person going to add value? So you have to think about it from that aspect. And then you
So
also
would
have
it
to
be more of thinking of outcome and benefits
outcome, think of
as
that,
you're
yeah,
doing bullet
outcome,
points?
benefits, achievements. And also realize that they're only looking at the document for 7 to 15 seconds. Don't, like, I remember one person was talking about how they fax things and they know how to print. It's like, no one's gonna hire. That's not why someone's hiring you. Like, if they're hiring you for much more important things. So talk more about that.
Anything when we talk about the emotion part of how might be holding the individuals back, what are the things that they are um have fear about when you talk to them? What's in that aspect?
That they can't do the job. And I'll be like, why can't you do it? And they'll be like, oh, I was like, look, most people, it's one it's one thing if I'm like an entry level and I'm going for a director position. But then for most people, it's like, well, why can't you manage 10? You manage 8 or you manage 5. It's going to be a little more work, but you can do it. So a lot of people hold themselves back. And then also to just go back, make sure your resume is a certain format. It's called, because it's typically read by computers, and computers can't read pictures. They can't, sometimes some of them have issue with colors and fancy formatting. So just Google ATS resume. Just have a clean, simple, nice format. Look, think about it. They're only looking at 7 to 15 seconds. You want it. You want them to be able to be like, oh, okay, this person has good experience, and I'm going to spend a little more time reading their resume, because most people make a decision right away. And if it doesn't get past the computer, it'll never get to that 7-second stage anyway.
So ATS, if any of you haven't hear that of that format, and so all those wonderful Microsoft Word templates to
Don't
use
use
in a
them. Don't use
resume,
them. Don't
don't use
use them.
them.
Yeah,
Which
I
I
mean,
think the last one I made, I got creative because that's how I am. Because
yeah,
I already told you I have a problem with resume, so I had to make it fun for me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
now you're saying the time I probably spent making it pretty was pointless.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have a website, look, if you hand it to someone, that's different. You can have a different type of resume. But
Yeah.
remember, the goal of the resume isn't necessarily to show your artistic skills. If you want to show your artistic skills, have a portfolio on the website, right? That's where your artistic skills, show your artistic skills, or spend that time building relationships so you can get referrals. That's a better use of your time than spending, you know, X number. I mean, spend time on your resume, but past that, spend time building relationships with people.
Now that's a great segue into the other half of really finding jobs. And regardless if
Yeah.
you have a degree or not, you and I were talking about before everyone came into the meetup was your personal branding and the type of connections and relationships that you build out there today. We're in a highly, digital world, social, media platforms. There's a lot of opportunity than beyond a resume these days.
Yeah.
What have you learned, from what you've been doing to probably give people advice on?
That there's probably someone in your network right now that can help you get closer to the job that you want. They just don't know you're looking, or they just don't remember you. It's just funny. I look at all these people, and they just say, "Hey, I wish," they really don't focus on even maintaining the relationships with your friends. Like, if you know I see these people, they're younger people is different, but if you're 40 plus and you're struggling to find a job, and it's like, what happened to your network? You've had 20 more years than all those entry level people to find a job, right? At that level, it's like you should be having a network that's going to at least assist you and guide you in the right direction. And I see it all the time. It's like, and to be fair, you get caught up in life, you get caught up, but make time for a phone call. Make time, call your friends. I actually have to call my friend. He called me yesterday, but I was in the middle of something. But call your friends. It doesn't matter. Once every 6 months. Like, how hard is that? You call one, call like one, call 3 people a week, 12 people a year, 100, every 6 months. You're calling 72 people. Just keep that on rotation, because you shouldn't call someone when you find out that they're 3 jobs later, and you don't want to call someone, oh, they got a job at Facebook, let me ask if they could help me. Like, you haven't called me in 2 years. Like, I don't know you.
It's funny that you say that because if you ever watch interviews with highly successful people out there, that's one of the number one things that they say is not only have connections, but make sure that you have good relationships.
Yeah.
And it's always, and one of them talked about that when you do talk to someone and you try maybe to give advice or what might have you, always end with an offering what you can do to help them as well.
Yeah. That goes such a long way, because look, there was one person, right? I do free resumes from time to time, but I don't advertise it, right? I mean, I'll say it on a podcast, because then someone can say, hey, you said it on a podcast, so they listen to me, right? But on LinkedIn, a lot of people, as a resume writer, they'll be like, "Oh, can you do my resume for free?" They'll just send me a message, attach a resume, and it's like some days I spend like 5 to 8 hours reviewing resumes. It's like, do you think I want to do a resume for someone I don't know who just demands that they do a resume that I do a resume for them? It's like, come on, I want to catch up on things. I want to exercise. I want to do these other things that are part of that are important to me. And everybody, see, unfortunately, everybody has a story, right? Everybody has, I have XYZ, and you know at some point you have to, or else I'll never, like, I would literally be homeless if I responded to every request to help them with their resume. And the other thing is, people help those who help themselves, right? If you ask me for resume help and it's clear that you haven't done any research, and it doesn't make sense for me to help you, because I can help you, show you everything, and then you're still going to ask for help, because there are people who I've helped and I still see them asking other people for help, right? So it's like, I gave you the help, why don't you follow it? So some people literally want hand holding. I've heard of instances where people help people with their resumes, and then they said, "Hey, can you apply for jobs for me too?" So it's like, so now I'm a little more selective in the sense of, I help proactive people who are like, "Hey, I know if I help them or they're doing the right things." And because I have a podcast episode on how to prepare for an interview. I've given that over 1,000 times, right? And you do the math. Only that episode only has a couple hundred downloads, right? So only 10% of the people who I say, "Hey, can you help me prepare for an interview?" I send it to them. Only 10% even listen. So from that, it's like, it's going to give me a jaded view of job seekers, in that there are people willing to help, but you just sort of want someone, and it's a 40-minute episode. It's like
What's the name of your podcast in
the
case
no
anyone wants
the
to?
No Degree podcast, and you can find it on nodegree.fm. It's on several platforms.
Is it
So
also on your website too, on nodegrees.com? Can you
you can
access
find it, you can
there?
access it, but nodegree.fm, so it has a separate
Okay.
site.
I
Yeah,
just didn't
that's
know if there was, or it's also, is it available to information on your LinkedIn too? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. On my LinkedIn, you see that host of the No Degree. If you search the No Degree podcast, you'll find it.
so
But
you
yeah,
have
it's like,
nodegree.com, you have
yeah,
a podcast, but
yeah.
I also know that you do some live streaming as well.
That's from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So the live shows are on LinkedIn. But yeah, it's like, I have so much information, like free information. Like, I've done over 100 hours of live stream, and there's so much. Like, I've done episodes on networking and all that. So it's like, for people who watch that and then they ask me for help, "Hey, on your networking thing, you did XYZ. I've applied like these strategies. What else do you think I'll answer." But for someone who's like, I tell people, it's like, don't ask bad questions. Like, if I like, Veronica, tell me something that you do, or like something that you're interested in,
Me?
like any topic, any topic.
Oh, I like Pilates.
Okay, imagine you're like, if I ask you, "Can you teach me Pilates?" It's like such a generic question that it would take you so long to answer. That's why when someone asks me, "How do I find a job?" It's like multi-part answer that requires so much information. Whereas if versus I ask you, "Hey," I ask you, "Hey, in Pilates, when I'm in this whatever, how do I make sure that I can do it safe?" Right? That's a question you can answer. You're like, "Okay, XYZ."
It's
Same
more
thing. It's
narrow
like,
and
you
specific.
have to ask narrow questions, because people ask me like, how do I begin in this? How do I begin in marketing? How do I begin in this? It's like so broad. Just start a little so you can ask more specific questions, and your job search will be much, much better.
Now, Ivan or Roxana, did you guys have any questions for our wonderful guest today?
And Roxana has been great with the comments.
Oh, I know. I figured she would have a question.
Yeah, and Ivan, do you have a question? His connection is really bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just
Yeah,
just type whatever then, and
yeah. Type
we'll
whatever question that you have. I
yeah.
mean, I really appreciate you guys showing up, but yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing job seekers could do is, there's so much information out there, and then at least start a little and spend the time, because job seeking is a very important skill, and it's a skill that will really empower you, because even if you have a job, I've seen people get raises of like 20 to 40% just by switching. And think about it, it's like 20-40% for most people is good. That's like the difference between, hey, living sort of paycheck, small savings, to like, hey, I'm comfortable and I can really do a lot of stuff. And
Yeah,
I
it requires self-discipline and
yeah,
motivation and a level of confidence of believing in yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. There's more than one post that ever goes out there on LinkedIn, and there was a recruiter that was talking about self-worth.
Yeah.
And then of course you see the dynamic different comments like, how do you know the person's situation, and da 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 da, they could have just needed a job because they're not working right now because of the pandemic. And where my head went naturally was, okay, but when somebody asks about how much is your rate, and you respond anything, I need a job, what stopped you from trying to provide a rate? Because if they really wanted to hire you, they would have came back with a counter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. I,
And
it's just a
and
complex
that was her
situation.
point, was
Yeah.
saying, why didn't you just answer the question of what is your rate, instead of saying anything?
Yeah, but you know what my take on that is? The employer should have a rate that they're offering you. They got to stop making it a negotiation and stop thinking about, hey, I want to give this person the lowest I can get away with. Like, for example, when so this like company I have, we pay like $20 an hour for tech support, and a lot of our a lot of the employee like it's part timers, college students. Like, yeah, we could get away with paying $15, right? We could even get away with paying even less, and they would probably do it. But when we pay that high rate, now what happens is people we get good referrals. Like in one day, we needed 40 extra employees. We got it right away. We're paying 15, people can ask, and you get good, and then people refer good people. They're like, hey, you know what? This job pays really well. You get good people. You get people who are incentivized to stay. So I think the job for the employer is look, cut that out, shorten the, offer them a rate. If they're not happy, let them counter. But I
Or at
think
least start with the range and stop with
start
the
with the
gap.
range because you look at all these jobs, they don't even have a range, and it's like it just makes things so much more harder. And then so Roxanne says, do you see any patterns with Gen Z when it comes to learning and working? I think just the newer generations, they're more rebellious. Money is less of importance to them, and values and alignment and the mission is more important, and just they just care about these things. And I think there's a big culture clash because it's like you get a lot of people who are like, well, in my day we were happy to have a job, but it's like it's not your day anymore and things are different, right? It's you have to like adjust with the times, and I think you really have to see that a lot of people are seeing that I don't want to work 20. You're also not incentivized to work at the same company 20, 30 years. Like, the people talk about, yeah, in my day I did this, but it's like you got a pension, you got all these great benefits. It's like, why would I stay at this company when I don't get anything? It's like, yeah, maybe I might get a few more vacation days, but why? So I think that's like a big pattern. And I think, you know, a lot of Gen Z, they want to learn more. They want to be challenged. They want to do that. Right. I'm seeing that a big pattern with like Gen Z.
That's a good question. What about midlife career? So, as some people, I was talking to someone that they were in the conference trade show
Yeah,
business, and they were a designer,
yeah,
and it's gone now,
yeah, yeah,
right? Um, what could you probably say in advice? And some people might not have a degree, so I'm
yeah,
going to keep it in just very
yeah,
diverse.
yeah,
In that is, what are some things that they probably should be considering? I know you mentioned that they probably aren't looking at their history
yeah,
and seeing how to repurpose that, but
yeah,
what
yeah.
what else when there's a lot of emotions happening with that individual?
Try. Just realize people really forget how many skills are transferable. Like just because you design trade show booths or trade show floors does not mean you can't design other things, right? Maybe you want to learn new skill. Like for example, for us, we designed virtual trade show, you know, designs, and that's also very important. So see where you can be transferable. Also realize that you can assist, go into a different industry. Maybe it's not trade show, maybe it's tech, maybe you help with UI UX, like all these things. There's something transferable. And also just realize that you can teach an old dog new tricks. That there are people who are 70 who are learning how to code and stuff. So there's something you can learn something new, and just realize that all the things you've learned, they're not gone to waste, right? That they just put you. And like the number one thing I tell people, you have to own your story. You cannot change your story. You have to own it. It's a part of you. So yes, you're a designer. talk about how that gives you a unique perspective, that if they hire you, this is what they get, right? And that background is not a waste. I think a lot of people think that, hey, I worked in a hospital setting, it's not a waste. Well, you worked in a hospital setting, you worked in a high tense environment, you dealt with people at their worst. Now you're going to deal with people in a different scenario, and it's going to be a lot easier. People, you really have to realize that your background is a strength, and diversity in backgrounds are a strength. That if they like, hey, you're not like our traditional employees, be like, hey, if you want non-traditional results, you're gonna have to step outside. You have to kind of do that. Be like, look, traditional results. If you want traditional results, you want average, then hire average people, hire people with similar backgrounds. But if you want growth, you want change, you gotta take that effort, make that leap.
Is there a particular generation that you have come across that I'm just going to use
Yeah,
the description of aggressive,
yeah, yeah,
um, where compared to other generations? Because I wouldn't necessarily say the younger generation is aggressive when
no,
they're sheltered.
yeah,
I mean, I used to be able to go out into my parents didn't even
yeah,
know where I was, come home when the lights come on.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I lived in a whole different world.
yeah. I mean, I will say that yes, the younger people are sheltered, unfortunately, and but I would say it's a trend. It's not everyone, because it's like I do see
Yeah.
some parents. It depends. Um, I think also younger people are less aggressive because they just don't know. Like, confidence comes from experience. Like, confidence is a skill that you build. It's like, I'm not going to be out and negotiating at 22 years old. Like, I know it's like, I'm not in a position to, I need more life experience. Now it's like, I'm 29, and, now I can't. If I were to get a job, I know what I'm worth. I know what I can get away with. It's just those things come with experience. And there's like almost no way that a 22-year-old can have that experience, right? Without coming across as like arrogant. So I think that you're going to see changes based on experience and based on life experiences too, because there are some people who are older who would be too afraid to negotiate. And your life position affects that if you're one paycheck away, that you only have 1-2 months of saving, and you need this job, you're not going to be as aggressive as someone who knows, hey, if I don't get this job, cool, I got 5 more lined up that I know one of them will work out. So it's I think circumstance and life experiences and experience changes how aggressive people are.
Is there a particular dominant group of people that are coming your way more now these days?
Get mixed. I got a lawyer who contacted me yesterday, because the thing is, the way I do my resumes, it's like different. I spend time with the person. I'm not just like, hey, XYZ, come and I'll do it. It's like I'm doing a marketing resume right now. I'm doing like a sales resume. And again, it's all talking to people, because all I'm doing is talking to people, asking them about their experiences, helping them understand what someone else wants to see. And then I'm putting it down on a piece of paper in a way that's easily digestible, right? It's not like, look, if I were doing a lawyer resume and I didn't have to talk to the person, yes. Could someone who specializes in a lawyer resume do it faster than me? Probably yes. But I understand, like, at the end of the day, it's like just getting the experiences out of them. Like, same thing as, like, think of it like podcasting, but at the end they get a resume. It's like an interview where I ask them, hey, what are you good at? What are you not good at? And I'm really open with them. I'm not like trying to get them. You know, I I'm here to help them.
How long is it on the average for people to really, get unstuck and it starts to become easier for them to put it down to paper?
Takes always a couple hours. It's
Yeah.
always because I need to learn about the person and their life experiences. And actually, to go back, the type of person who's coming to me is a type of person who's willing to invest in themselves. Like, that's who the difference is. There's some people who I know, they won't pay a dime for a resume. Like, they refuse. And to them, it's like, look, if you don't want to pay, I have these free resources. But at the end of the day, it's like, how much is the job worth to you? And if I knew someone could really help me and they were good at what they do, because I've rejected people. I've seen some people with good resumes. I was like, look, if you want to do it yourself, make these 3 changes and you'll be all right. Right. It's not like I need your business. Right. I'm not a high pressure sales with like, hey, no, no, if you don't use me, you're not. I'm be like, look, are you getting the jobs you want? Cool. You don't need me.
It's
Right.
probably
If
not fun to work with people that don't want to help themselves either.
Yeah, no, it's like, look, you couldn't pay me. Like, there's some people who I know, it's like I tell them, it's like, look, you're better off with someone else, or you're better off doing it themselves, yourself, because I know what I'm in for, and no amount of money is worth it. Like, they got to pay a year's worth of salary. Like, some people are like that annoying.
Well, I know we're about 10 minutes till, so we can probably start wrapping up. Is there any more last minute questions? Roxana, did you have any? Just wanted to, nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So,
thank you so much. I
yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we don't have anyone for November yet. So if any of you that are either watching this after recorded or what might have you, just contact me and let me know if you're interested in coming, or if you any of you have anybody that you think would be good to talk about how we are rethinking about future in education. Please let me know. And I hope to have you in some future things because I love talking to you.
No, don't hope you're gonna have me unless I get hit by a car or
I
something.
love it.
Who knows? But I'll
All
be here.
right. Well, thank you, everyone. And you know what? Try to get some sleep. I know that you've been having
Oh,
just
I'm gonna
little
get some
naps
sleep.
here and there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm gonna get some sleep tonight.
so thank you for your time and thank you, everyone.
All
So,
right.
catch you guys on the flip side.
All right. See ya. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.